Hey, welcome to Car and Driver, and that is our long-term Ram TRX. We've got about 17,000 miles on it, and when we learned that this truck was showing up, the Ford F-150 Raptor on 37s, we wanted to bring them out to this beautiful off-road park in northern Michigan to see how they both would fare. It's a balmy 17 degrees out, but it's beautiful. We're going to take these trucks on these trails, see what we like, what we don't like, and most importantly, have a good time. Isn't that right, Connor?
Yeah, let's get after it.
Let's do it. Guava pastry?
You got pastries?
You got guava pastries.
Thank
My
you.
wife baked these yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Carlos, as well.
Guava and cream cheese. You know, I really like this truck.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a good truck.
I do too. The only thing it needs is a different engine, and that's coming. So that makes me really excited.
Fire it up.
Yeah, like when you start it up, it's just like compared to the TRX.
Do you have it in the Baja exhaust mode?
Not on startup. So
Okay,
this is
so-
nice because when I want to start it back up, like if I've been off-roading and I turn the truck off, it says, do you want to return to Baja?
It returns to the
Always.
drive mode that
Yes.
you... Okay, cool.
And then now...
And I think you should rev it a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an interesting sound because it's not like... You look at this truck, you don't expect that sound, but
Yeah.
I have heard that sound at off-road park
Oh, yeah.
before, you know?
So when you're like ripping donuts, like you were ripping donuts in this yesterday, put it in two-wheel drive, ripping donuts, it just echoes through the woods.
It's
and
loud.
It's insane. And then you see the truck and you're like, that does not match. That sounds like it's a lifted GTR
Yeah, right.
running
It's
through the
super
woods.
weird.
It's hilarious. But like, I get that Ford had to do that with this engine because when you make a twin turbo V6 sound good, that's what it's going to sound like. You can't
Right.
make it
Yeah.
roar like the TRX.
V6s
V8.
sound like V6s, like, yeah.
But it sounds good.
Let's punch it.
All right, let's go.
And while we're talking about this engine, so we're down on power versus the Ram. We got to say, though, at this park, power didn't matter here because we're not going super fast through the desert dunes. We're not jumping these things. This is more of a trail-oriented thing. So the power difference didn't really show up. So it's more of like the character of the powertrain. And even though we're down on power, this engine still rips.
Oh yeah, there was times though, however, like when we were doing some uphill climbs, there was some times, especially with this 10-speed transmission, that I was kind of begging for some extra power.
Do you want more torque?
Yeah, I wanted some more torque. I needed some more umph to get up the hill.
Yeah.
But that's very minimal complaint about this engine. I mean, if you're just bombing through the desert and stuff and on these trails, it's more than adequate.
When we did start moving at speed, I really enjoyed how responsive the throttle was. So, you know, imagine big turbocharged V6, you might feel some lag, but no, this thing really gets on boost quickly and stays on there, and I know that they've worked hard to make it feel like that. In fact, when we were done driving this thing fast, I got out of it thinking of that, like that scene on Top Gear where they're looking at one car and he's like,
"This is brilliant,
but I want this." And that's how I feel about this engine. Like, this engine's brilliant, but like, I'd totally be okay with a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8 in this.
Yeah, put the 5-liter in this, and it's more than okay.
And I think it's my problem. That's not Ford's problem.
Yeah, it is your problem. I mean, I have the same problem too. Everything about this truck I love and I would want, except for the powertrain.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing it's missing. And
but
it's coming in the Raptor R, apparently.
It's a rad powertrain.
Yeah.
Like, it's a totally rad powertrain, but it's just, it's funny how it's the logical thing that makes sense and it works really well, but it's still like, you're like, oh, but it could be a V8.
Yeah. I mean, even just driving compared to like just on these trails and going fast, it feels like light and nimble on its feet, and it really is just smooth over all of these bumps. And I think that's when, with the 37-inch tire package on this, like if you hit this, like we're about to hit a huge bump right now, like it just soaks it up with, compared to like the TRX on the 35s. You'll feel a couple of the rocks and roots and stuff in the trail a little bit more. So these tires do soak up a lot of the rough parts of the terrain, which is really nice.
trucks were totally able to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, no one truck didn't get hung up, and I think that speaks to, you know, how capable these things are. But it also, you gave us an opportunity to like suss out the differences in character, and they are very different trucks in the way they go about things. You're totally right. This feels lighter. The impacts are softer. The steering is lighter, like significantly lighter. And that overall makes this truck feel more like an off-road toy rather than a full-size pickup truck that can do off-road stuff.
Especially like this off-road park is pretty tight. It's not the ideal place for these trucks.
Yes.
But they still don't feel as big as they are, and especially with the Raptor. When we're going up these tight hill climbs and stuff like that, you really don't feel the size unless you're outside of the truck. Like when I was watching you go up the hills and stuff, it's like that is wide. Like that thing is like, you would not expect it to be able to go up some of these hill climbs that we did. And then especially when you get to the top of these and you have to make a very tight left turn, it just does it with ease.
Yeah, and that's when you appreciate like having the forward-facing camera with the tire markers. And this one looks great because the forward-facing camera takes up the entire display, the entire width of the display, so it's super high resolution, really easy to reference. Better than the Rams for sure.
Oh yeah.
These trucks are built for going fast in desert, right? These are not for low-speed technical stuff. They can do it, but the limitation is their size. Yeah. So the only obstacles that we ran into with either truck that we couldn't do were because the trail was too narrow, or the obstacle was too big that no stock vehicle could do it. But these things are absurdly capable. If they were the size of mid-duty trucks, mid-size duty trucks, if this was the size of a Ranger, if that Ram was the size of, I don't know, a Dakota.
If they brought back the Dakota.
Dakota, right? Dakota TRX. That'd be awesome.
That'd be so cool.
But if they were that size, we'd be able to climb so much more of these things because that size would give you that flexibility to do it. It was crazy though, doing some of the tighter stuff that you really get to see how much travel these trucks have. Mm-hmm. You know, I was following, you were in this, I was in the Ram, we were making those really tight left turns at the top of that one lip, and I'd see like the driver's side rear wheel just totally smashed, crammed in there.
Right up in the wheel well.
Barely,
and that's what the new coil springs on the rear in this truck really help with the articulation. Not given the on-road driving is also superb in this now, but that also really helps, and you can see there's the axle just moving up and down and shoving wheels into the wheel wells when we're doing that kind of stuff.
Just barely kiss the protectors, the rocks. I mean, you just barely touch them, and that's what they're there for. But yeah, it's just so good at doing it. And this truck also has the advantage of having an optional Torsen front diff, which I swear, coming out of those, when we were doing some of the higher speed stuff, making some of those sharp left turns, I could feel that pull me forward more so on the Ram. That's definitely an advantage in this truck's favor. What's funny too is that on paper, if you look at the specs, this has more clearance, you know,
and it's just minimal too.
That's what I'm getting at. Like on paper, this thing has the specs advantages, but they're so small that you actually like don't experience. Like the rear suspension travel is better than the Rams by 1/10 of an inch.
That's just Ford being petty at that point.
That's nothing. And you know, same thing with the approach, breakover, and departure angles. They're all slightly better than the Ram, like by a degree.
Yeah, and we took them up a ramp that was probably what would you say, maybe 30 degrees, 25 degrees,
something like that.
Somewhere around there.
A ramp that was impossible for either truck to go up. But we wanted to see if like the Ford could be able to go further up it because it was slightly better. No, it was.
They both did the same. Yeah, they both made it up with no issues. So when it comes down to it, really in like rear world situations, you're gonna be fine. Yeah, in either truck.
Exactly. My only complaint about this truck is the shifter. It feels
the shifter's terrible.
It feels cheap.
It feels so cheap, and it's got the mode where you can fold it down.
Yes.
But it's only in park. Yeah. And then you can fold the center console over.
And it feels like that because the whole thing has to be able to sort of ratchet downwards. But like, this is a big truck. It should feel strong. I should have the same sensation grabbing the shifter that I do when I'm like latching a freezer door shut, like a commercial grade freezer. It should be that ka-chunk. This kind of feels like a kid's toy.
Yeah, it feels like it's gonna break every time you shift into gear.
It's a little flimsy.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's really my biggest complaint about this truck. Otherwise, it's nice.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny too. Some of these trails, look kind of gnarly, but I swear this truck could do a lot of them at too high.
Yeah.
It's
It's just so capable and so good. Whoa.
You've got so much tire, you've got so much articulation, you've got so much clearance that, I mean, this stuff is easy mode. Your only limitation is basically your size.
Yeah. And we're gonna prove the size limitation really isn't that bad by climbing up this hill.
Yeah, and this one, the first time I went up this hill, I pulled it in the mirrors just because it seemed like the appropriate thing to do.
Oh, yeah. But we're just fine.
And really the hard part about this is the lip.
Yeah. Which, oh, I mean, we hit the rock slider there, but with ease.
And you know, you're doing this 4 high.
Yeah,
We
we're
don't-
just fine. And we have trail 1 pedal drive, so
Yep.
we could do that. It's like a downhill assist control, but right now I like just doing it myself, so I'm just modulating the brake pedal all
Yeah,
by
so
myself.
you've got the low speed cruise control, and then the 1 pedal drive is the one that makes your throttle also act like a
Yeah.
brake. So you've got all these controls, but I haven't found a brand new situation yet with this that we actually need to engage that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's there just for helpers.
It's
but
nice to
a
have.
lot of like hardcore off-roaders will just want to do it themselves because that's what they're used to, so.
I also think it speaks to how capable these things are.
Yeah.
Where you like really need to be in some gnarly situations before you actually want to use them.
Yeah.
I also, unrelated, but I do laugh at the graphics, the 37 graphics on
yeah.
the side.
It's
I
bad.
mean, could you imagine if the Ram had graphics that said 700 horsepower on the side?
Yeah.
Actually,
I'm surprised they haven't, honestly.
I could kind of actually imagine that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when you get 37-inch tires, you can delete the graphics. It's a no-cost option to delete the graphics.
I would do that immediately.
Yeah, that's
one
what
of the first
that's
options I would take off.
absolutely what I would do too. In fact, there was a way to rebody this and make it look like a base XL F-150. That's what
Yeah.
I would want. That's what I want. But with the loudest exhaust possible.
Oh, yeah.
The most
Just always
obnoxious-
driving Baja mode.
Always. Let's hop in the Ram.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go exploit some 702 horsepower.
Before we start, I gotta say, I really like this truck.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I said the same thing about the Raptor, but I really like this
It's
truck.
really
too.
hard to decide which ones like you like more because like they both have unique qualities that just make them so special.
Now let's hear a real engine.
You just get all that blower whine.
Oh man. The blower is everywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime you touch the gas, you hear that blower whine. And
Yeah.
it's just Rams reinforcing you have a supercharged V8. Like
You never
should hear
forget.
it. Yeah. I mean, this is a full-size off-road truck and it's got launch control, and the launch control looks like timing lights on a drag strip.
Yeah.
Like, they get it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do get it. They understand their customers.
Let's roll.
Immediately, how does this feel like when you're driving it? Just
So-
starting on the trails.
The big difference between these two is that sensation. So we talked about how the Raptor feels light and a little more nimble.
Yeah.
And more like an off-road toy. This feels like a big truck.
And it feels like a ballistic missile. Like this thing is just, when you're flying through the woods and you have just that 702 horsepower V8 screaming out of the back exhaust, and you get that blower whine just resonating through the cabin, you're like, yeah, this thing's bad. This thing's bad to the bone.
It feels bigger. It's wider.
It does feel bigger,
But
yeah.
it does feel like it's heavier because it is heavier.
Yeah.
But like, so that ends up with like impacts that feel a little sharper. The steering is definitely heavier. The blind spots are just the same. They're both bad in both trucks. That's why
Yeah.
they both have like really good exterior camera systems, so the Ford's is a little crisper. And so that difference between the two is this: there's just a bit more like my tummy's jumbling a
Yeah.
bit more in this truck, you know, which is very technical. Tummy. This is the tummy jumbler.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And just like the view out of the hood, like they both have a bulging hood, but
Yes.
this is like has more of a presence, and you can kind of see the red on, there's like a 6.2 liter supercharged badge on the side of each part of the hood, and you can see that, and it's just like that on top of just how just menacing this thing feels is like you are just reminded that this thing is just probably the baddest truck out there right now.
This is more truck in every sense of the phrase. So like it's heavier.
Yeah.
It's got a bigger engine. It's got more horsepower. It's faster, or quicker, I should say, in a straight line. And you feel that everywhere, and that's really character. And that's not a. Some people might read that as an insult, although I don't intend it as that way.
It's definitely not.
Because it's just as capable as the Raptor through the areas that we're driving right now, which again are not, optimal for high-speed desert runners. Places where you can't really explore the horsepower advantage, or you can't go fast enough to really feel the difference in weight over dunes and stuff. Yeah. But this thing rocks.
Yeah, there's certain spots in this park, since like we mentioned before, that it's a little small, it's a little tight, where the Raptor benefited from not having so much power. With this, when I was following you in the Raptor and we were going down in these tight sections and there's these tight turns, is like I could see you just hammer it in the Raptor. And I was like, I want to do the same. So I would hammer it the same in this, and I'd be like, oh, I'm like moving and I need to slow down, and this, I'm running out of space. There's too much power. I'm running out of space.
You don't have time to use that power, and that's like that Raptor's got more of that doom buggy feel.
Exactly.
And this is a truck, right?
This is like, you just want to go wide open in the sand dunes and just let that V8 scream and just like go flying, mobbing through the dunes.
I also like, there are bits about this interior that I genuinely like more than the Ford. So even though you have a shifter on the console, the center armrest area, which I want like a steering column shifter, you still have a way more functional center console here because you've got more storage space, you've got places to put your phone, all that stuff. I like that a lot more than the Ford setup. And the shifter feels more substantial. Yeah. It feels like a truck shifter should, right?
Yeah, and I think it's time we mention, since this is our long-termer, and the Raptor is, we've only had it for about 2 weeks, is we've spent a lot of time in this truck.
Yes.
We've got, it's at 16,445, and everyone on our staff has pretty much driven it by now. And I think the biggest complaint is this touchscreen.
Yeah, the touchscreen.
Because it is just so laggy, and we've had so many issues. You'll press climate, it'll go to the sound system, it'll crash on you all of a sudden. You can't connect to Apple CarPlay. You're, like you said when we were pulling into the hotel last night, you were trying to navigate through Apple CarPlay and just shut off, and you took the wrong turn. We're like, oh, Carlos is going left.
I was just navigating by feel at that point, like trying to find the bathroom in the middle of the night. It's not ideal, and that's, ideally that's a warranty repair fix, but that is a frustrating thing.
Yeah.
In a truck that relies on this screen to do most of the features, like to activate the forward-facing camera, to change HVAC, to get in your entertainment settings, all that stuff is done on this screen. And so that's really frustrating when that screen doesn't work.
And when you're spending around 90 grand for a truck, that's something that should work.
Yes, exactly. And let's talk about like also the other stuff. We've lived with this truck in a lot of ways. And we've done the obvious truck stuff. We've taken it towing, we've done commuting, but it's also done a hot lap around VIR.
Yeah.
That's why it's got the sticker on the back.
Yeah, so if you noticed in the video, there's a grand course from Virginia International Raceway on the back. That's why.
Yeah, and we've done like almost everything you can do with this truck, and everybody still loves it outside of that screen.
Yeah.
So that's a really like noteworthy aspect to consider with either of these trucks. We spent more time with this obviously than the Raptor, and everybody adores this truck for every reason except for infotainment and perhaps the gas mileage.
Yeah, the gas mileage isn't great, but what do you expect from?
But it's a 700 horsepower supercharged V8,
Yeah, you know what you're getting into when you're buying this truck.
If you buy this truck and then complain about the gas mileage, that's your problem.
Yeah.
But it's a great thing, and I gotta say, every time I have it home, every time it's in my driveway, I get back from walking the dog, I look at my driveway, see this truck, and I just go, yes.
Yeah, and I live in an apartment, so I park it right outside my window, and every morning when I do the remote start in a cold start, I'm just like, yes.
And your neighbors are like, stop.
Yeah, and my neighbors are like, we hate this guy.
I should also specify, we have not aired down the tires on either truck.
Yeah.
We just went out because there's nothing here that's too challenging for either truck.
Yeah, and a lot of this ground out here, since we were like mid-20s, low 20s, it's pretty frozen stuff out here, so the mud and the sand is pretty packed down and pretty hard, so.
You did this in 4 high in the
Yeah.
Raptor, right? So we could probably do this. I wish I could probably do this 2 high.
Yeah.
Because it's just
Yeah,
so-
that's one thing that when we talked about it in the Raptor that I really don't like about the TRX is there's no 2-wheel drive, so
Yeah.
you can't. I mean, especially in a truck with this much power and it's this loud, like you want to do donuts, you want to do burnouts, you want to do awesome stuff. I mean, just with ease. The top of that climb is just a 90-degree
The
left.
angle, yeah,
and
it's not good.
there's a rock right on the left, so you see it right on the left, and you forget that you're just in this hulking pickup truck because it's just fine. It's just fine.
It just does it. I mean, it's these trucks. I kept saying yesterday when we were doing a lot of this stuff. These are easy mode.
Yeah.
You don't need to use most of the tools that you have at your disposal here because they've got so much traction, they've got so much articulation, they got so much capability, they got so much gearing. You know,
Yeah.
The Ford's a 10-speed. This is an 8-speed. Their overall crawl ratios, though, when you're in low gear, first gear, low range and first gear, they're both like around. I think like the Ford's 44 and the Ford's 50 and this is 44 to 1 or
Yeah.
something like that. So close, but yeah, you can just crawl right up these obstacles. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Like that's what blows me away. I mean, if you were to come out here with an equivalent Ram or F-150 from 10 or 15 years ago, it'd be a lot more challenging. You know?
And even just like the ease of what it does going over stuff at speed.
Yeah.
You can like you don't have to worry about any bumps or rocks or this branch. You could rock this branch going at speed and it would just soak it right up.
We were stuffing these wheels. We were seeing full droop, and like you're not concerned at any point that you're actually challenging these things.
Yeah.
And if you're at a point where you're actually challenging these things, you probably better be knowing what you're doing.
Or you're airborne.
Or you're airborne. Because these things take so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I adore these trucks. It's also appropriate too that both have dinosaur names, you know, like haha T-Rex, haha Raptor,
Yeah.
right? But like we probably have like one more generation of these trucks left.
Yeah. The next Raptor's coming out probably in the next 5 or so years. There'll probably be another TRX, but once that's over, I mean, it's electrification. It's
Yeah.
what GMC's doing with the Hummer.
It's going to be this gradual move towards hybrids and EVs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that you could say these are dinosaurs and the EV meteorites coming,
Yeah.
right? Like to just really torture the metaphor.
Yeah.
So, man, it's really hard to just not enjoy these while you have them.
Yeah. And Stellantis already announced that they're killing off the Hellcat V8, and it's like, what better send off than just throwing it in this truck? Like, that's the best way they could have done it.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah.
If you are deciding between a Ram TRX and a Ford F-150 Raptor and you're trying to decide which one is the winner, it's you. You're the winner because you get to decide between these two trucks.
And we envy you.